preamble time. If you see my previous tier list, this one is mostly the same, with now the addition of machine age and stuff having moved around a little bit. I've also changed the rankings to, again, mostly the same. It's just to make it a little bit easier to understand. I'm also going to be hitting what I believe to be the highlights of the DLC, just to make it a little quicker, and there's some stuff that's just kind of face value and you can look at and understand what it is. Also, there's a sale going on Steam, and it has like 50% off everything, I think, besides Machine Age for the DLCs, and I think Stellaris itself is like 75% off. So by the time this video comes out, there's only going to be like a day left. Now, I tend to get it out earlier, but a certain DLC for a certain game might have maybe distracted me. Maybe. Anyway, preamble over, let's get into it. The first tiers are different, as I think they have stuff that feels somewhat integral to the experience of Stellaris, and generally good DLC besides Old Lord, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Utopia is what's going to be pretty much any experience Stellaris players first recommended DLC, and what I think most notably is Essential Paths, which there are four: cybernetic, genetic, synthetic, and psionic. All function pretty much the same of buffing your species, do providing traits to them, and leaders as well. Each get their own tradition tree and pretty much do the same things like buff output and prop growth. While they're all pretty similar besides Psionic, which has you do some eldritch magic stuff, they do have further specific things for builds and add a lot of replayability, which I think is the most important thing for DLCs in Stellaris, as well adding quite a bit of flavor. Hive Mind, which is a new authority or government type, I use the term sort of interchangeably. Instead of having an ethic, you are a Gestalt consciousness. You get a bunch of unique civics and gameplay changes, like pretty much all your buildings are altered in some way, and you also don't need consumer goods. The DLC authority also gets versions of the base civics as well as ones from DLCs. There are three civics you get from Utopia. They're all good, but the standout one is Fanatic Purifiers, which was an origin and still feels like one. You get a bunch of military bonuses in exchange. You can't do diplomacy because your diplomatic stance is extermination or purification of all the species. So, if you want to purge the filthy Xenos, this is the one for you. New mega structures with Dyson Spear, which allows you to encase a star, generate up to 2,000 energy, and a Ringworld, which destroys a whole segment to create 4 segments, which offer a lot of planet capacity for each, as well as special designations. The Science Nexus, which makes 300 research for each category and 50% research speed overall. There's also the Century Way, which it is good. It gives you vision of the whole galaxy, but also bad because it'll probably murder your computer, particularly in the late game. So it is good, just most machines probably won't be happy about you doing this. Habitats, which are custom modes that provide districts, jobs, or increase passive yields based off the bodies / deposits they are built on. So if you build on energy producing deposit, you get energy districts that give you technician jobs. You also could do this with research, and it has the special designation to increase research output, which is really good. And also, like on stuff like exotic resources, it will provide clicker jobs. Federations, while the main thing added is more so the political part of Stellaris, you also get 8 new origins, which are all pretty good. The Galactic Community, which policies can be passed to buff certain aspects for members and allow things like sanctioning members. It makes your diplomatic way matter much more, and instead of being a somewhat accessory thing, it's something you could really build into and influence the game. Federations themselves, which are mega alliances, which buff whatever the focus is, research, military, unity, etc., and get stronger throughout time, assuming you're getting along with the other members. There's also a navy, which the president controls, and all members contribute to. The Federation also has internal laws to govern all of these, as well as letting others into a Federation, election cycles, and all of that. The Mega Shipyard and Mega Structure, when fully built, has 20 shipyards and provides an empire-wide shipbuild speed buff, a very strong Mega Structure, and also has the added little convenience factor of when you have a lot of fleets, you don't need to send them to separate starbases to upgrade them, so it won't take forever. You can just use the Mega Shipyard because, the 20 shipyards and also the build speed buff. The Juggernaut ship, which is basically a mobile citadel starbase that has 2 shipyards, 2 hangar bays, and 2 gun batteries in it, can upgrade itself and repair as well as build ships, including upgrading them and repairing them. You get the politics tradition tree, which you guessed it is for political stuff, mainly the Galactic Community. Now moving on to the new Essential tier, which is what it sounds like. Galactic Paragons offers a lot with further specializations with destiny traits, which some are pretty nutty and have really great influence on your empire, and it can be planetary buffing. For example, if you have a forge world, it can have a leader that really buffs the output of alloys and or reduces the upkeep of them, or empire wide through a counter trait and do stuff like reducing empire size. It adds a lot to really min-max your builds or sometimes just make them straight up broken. You get 2 tradition trees, 1 aptitude focusing on later upkeep, cost trait selection, which is alright, but Sagecraft is great, easily top 3, focusing on agendas, giving counselors XP every time you pass one, and with given how counselors are the most important leaders, this is particularly good. The DLC also gives an agenda for each tradition on adoption, including DLC ones, and also gives an extra position for your council, and also including DLC ones as well, give a position as well, adding a bit more to your gameplay options as well as adding onto pretty much every single DLC, which is, a nice little thing. You get an Origin, which is my favorite, closest thing to a God Emperor Origin, with tons of build options and good narrative. It's also just pretty strong. Some civics, which are, alright. The Paragons themselves, for which are legendary and have a quest chain associated with them, and have their own special ships and unique traits. A bunch of others that appear somewhat randomly and have destiny traits that any other leader could get, but they get at any level. The only issue I have with this DLC is I believe it's a tad bit overpriced, and something like an extra counter slot being behind the DLC like locked is kind of why. But other than that, DLC is really good, adds a lot of great things, and it's something I think every single Stellaris player should get. Overlord is so Overlord has some issues, and it's mostly because of the main appeal of DLC. Probably should be base game, or at least a good chunk of it should be. First, let's describe what I'm talking about. Vast specialization, not even too complex of a feature, but a very useful one. It allows you to specialize subjects into military, research, or resource focus, and they get stronger throughout time. It also increases the amount of holdings you can have, which absolutely no reason why that can't be base game. It's not really even a feature that's added, it's just a thing. Orbital rings are semi-star bases around planets that can build star-based stuff, extra defense, shipyards, etc. Although the main thing is going to be the special orbital ring modules you can build in them that can expand your district size and upgrade resource production quite a bit, which can turn your planets into powerhouses of production. You also get hyper relays, which speed up travel greatly since you only need to jump once, and then it sort of changed the jump together, making something that would have been 3 years into a half year. These two also feel really good for the feel or fantasy of Stellaris. It just really fits, but they aren't like super crazy additions. Like they're not like a insane future or just content you're getting. It's something that I would say is more vibe based, but it would have been just way better if it was something that was a part of a $10 DLC or just, base game. It's not that crazy of a future, but just feels so right for Stellaris. And it also sucks because it's wrapped up in a $20 DLC that I really feel like these 3 things are kind of the main focus, more so the orbital rings and hyper relays. But it just kind of is what it is. The DLC does give you some other stuff though. Fire Origin was also pretty good, besides one which includes the mega structures DLC offers, which is by far the worst one in the entire game. It's not even like a semi mega structure or super whatever it's called. It's a whole one, so you gotta go through the whole time investment and alloys and all that to make the thing, and it's just not good. It sort of shotguns your fleets. I mean, like catapults or jumps and whatever. The only really thing it has is that when it does launch at the system, it gives increased fire rate, which I mean is nice, but isn't anything like super crazy, especially for the investment requires in game. And then it also has a chance to scatter them and make it go MIA. So, yeah, like it's very niche, and even then it's like I mean it's fun if you want to use it, but probably only once. Yeah, it's just not good. There's also new enclaves, shroud workers, salvagers, and mercenary enclaves. Mercenary enclaves, which are created by empires, and an essential perk that makes you one of them or gives you the capacity to build one and makes you get paid by them more often. Since all of them that exist are owned by a certain empire, salvagers in particular are useful, but good luck having them spawn near you so you can make the full use of them. They scrap your fleets for alloys, although you need to send them there, which is why you want them near you, although they usually aren't because the game hates you, and that's your best way to get a reputation for them. But they also have really useful buildings too, and just various other services they offer. And shroud walkers are pretty much anything related to the shroud. So yeah, the DLC is fine overall. The stuff it offers feels really good for the gameplay, but again, the $20, it's just in a good stuff that feeling it could have been maybe part of a small DLC or a free update. Definitely get it on sale. I do think you should get it at some point, but yeah, don't pay full price for this. Now moving on to A tier, and our first DLC is Machine Age, and this DLC is kind of spicy. So while it is the most expensive DLC to date, it is, I would define as girthy. It offers a lot of content. A new crisis, which I would say is by far the best. The others are good, but I would compare them more to a like something akin to a horde mode, and this one actually feels like a boss fight with mechanics and just all of that. It's just really fun, and actually, I think maybe even the hardest. A new Become the Crisis Path, which I would say is better than Nemesis. The new Origins 2, which are good for gameplay and good narrative. Cinematic Creed offers the most, I think, out of all of them, giving a lot of different routes you can take, and is the closest thing to once I realized the weakest of my flesh, it disgusted me type of thing. So if that interests you, is also that. Synthetic fertility is more so just a rush synthetic ascension. Your people are dying, they need new bodies. You start with research boosting techs unlocked, not as an option, you just have them, and you get synthetic ascension pretty easily from the first like 30 years, which is particularly good since it usually takes the longest out of all of them. The other ones you just has you start with an arc furnace, the new superstructure, which increases mining station output greatly in the system, and gives all celestial bodies mining deposits, which gets stronger as you upgrade it, and on the final upgrade you also get alloys. This is particularly great for habitats too, because when you build your habitats on them, you also get mining districts off the deposits and increase alloy deals. Dyson swarms, which are like baby Dyson spears, but they increase the output of a star in general, so it could be either energy or physics. And alright, for the sake of my time and my sanity, let's just land grab this shit. You get 6 new civics. Synthetics and cybernetics can get a version of whatever authority they already are, and typically pretty strong. New synthetic traits and situation, which add extra benefits or downsides, as well as narrative stuff when going from organics to synthetics. The DLC also gives synthetic and cybernetic ascension, which is also given by Utopia as well. You get machine intelligence, which you get from Synthetic Dawn, and it's basically a machine hive mind or Skynet type deal, whatever however you want to think about it. A bunch of new cosmetic stuff, including 2 ship sets and portraits. The cybernetic ones in particular are quite good, as they have 3 versions of themselves going through multiple stages of cybernetics. Also, you can use machines in regular empires as your main. Before, if it was your starting species, you would need to use machine intelligence. Now you can just use them as your starting species in most setups. The DLC I think is worth it even off there, particularly if you don't have Utopia or Synthetic Dawn. It's arguably the best DLC. While I would still recommend getting Utopia or Federation over it, it's still really good, completely additive, adds a lot of content. So as your first DLC, it's still pretty worth it. And if you want to get it as your first DLC, I would say go for it. Megacorp, new government type, so it's pretty good because the whole new civics, different versions of the base ones you get, and with DLC ones, it's also maybe the easiest government type because of the special things about the government is the branch offices, which give you energy based off the trade value of the planet they are built on. You can put them on other empires planets you have a commercial deal with various types of offices that can be built, which also give additional benefits as well as provide jobs most of the time for the planet they are built on. Megacorp, new government type, so it's pretty good because the whole new civics, different versions of the base ones you get, and with DLC ones, it's also maybe the easiest government type because of the special things about the government is the branch offices, which give you energy based off the trade value of the planet they are built on. You can put them on other empires planets you have a commercial deal with various types of offices that can be built, which also give additional benefits as well as provide jobs most of the time for the planet they are built on. 3 new mega structures, they're all fairly good. Metal decompressor, which is built around black holes and can make up to 2,000 minerals. Mega art installation, which fully built gets 400 unity and 20% more amenities. That's just amenity generated from any source. Strategic coordination center, which gives naval capacity, sublight seed, increased defense platform capacity, and starburst capacity. You also get the ability to make a Unicop, whatever. It's basically like a Coruscant world, which can house a bunch of pops, has special districts for like either factory or forge or administrative, which if I recall correctly gives 10 of these jobs, and these planets have various other benefits like increased pop growth and pretty much every species having max habitability. The DLC also gives the Galactic Slave Market, so there's that. There's also Caravanos, which I kind of wish weren't a thing because 90% of the reason that there is a peddle useless crap and sometimes steal from you, although sometimes they sell some pretty good stuff to you, but mostly though too. It's overall pretty additive stuff and really no complaints. It's a pretty good DLC for 20 bucks. Synthetic Dawn is in a weird place. If you just want machine intelligence, which Machine Age also gives, there's not much of a point to get Synthetic Dawn. you miss out on a whatever origin and being able to make machine world, which the origin has you start with. And I think you don't get access to the whole civil war between organics and synthetics that can start within the Empire event thing. So you miss out on that, which isn't really that big of a deal. So it does give some like little additional stuff that Machine Age doesn't give, but I recommend just getting Machine Age if you want to get stacked on, unless you're like tight on cash and you really just want machine intelligence, which just for like that by itself, it's pretty good. You know, you can go ahead and set this $10 to 25, but generally I would just say just save up for Machine Age since you're getting a lot more with it as well. I think all of the species packs are about the same in quality, they're all pretty good. Talk always stands above the rest in terms of design and the amount of content you're also getting. 4 new species trait, which can be given to any species, which is nice, and they're all pretty good too. 3 civics, which can do a good amount for your gameplay options. And what I think is the biggest part of the DLC, the origins. Overtune gives access to special traits and ember creation, and nothing else, but you can create some pretty wacky builds with them and do some other nonsense. Knights for the Toxic God, which gives a whole ass narrative quest chain, changes the game a fair amount, giving unique jobs and starting off a habitat, and eventually even getting the option to control the Toxic God as a Colossus weapon. Now moving on to B tier, I put the rest of the species pack here because as I said before, I think they're all pretty good, and I'm gonna rattle them off quickly because I think they're not really too in depth. Aquatics, my personal favorite, become fish, and for some reason that is really strong with trade offers for really good civics and origins. Mostly the pet space dragon one, which you could kill, but why would you do that? Plantoids spread like weeds with the origin and get arguably one of the most powerful civics in the game, Catalytic Technicians. Necroids has a great origin, which changes the game a good amount, cool ship designs, and, well, a lot of necromancy stuff, go figure. Humanoids also has really good civics and the best tradition, or at least top 3, it being pretty much the definition of spy, focusing on rivalries. Lithoids, you are a rock and you eat rocks, colonize other planets by crashing into them and get some exotic resources, generating traits for your pops. Interrela gives you a good amount of content, which the more archaeological sites, the archaeotechs, which are quite strong, a great origin that actually makes it possible to use a tech since you start with generating them, which is super useful since you could usually only get them through sites, which you have a one-time deposit, and sometimes a recurring one, although it's usually pretty small. The relics themselves have a cool story chain with techs along going with them, both being quite strong. Overall, just a solid story pack, and it's totally additive, so something you just can get or not, and it's something I recommend catch on. So overall, just a fine little thing. Now moving on to C tier. First Contact is actually alright, it's just a bit overpriced, and the origins definitely fulfill a certain fantasy of being against the odds, each starting with a disadvantage, and more so for the narrative experience. This includes the civics as well. Well, it's technically 4, but they're all just different variations of the same government, well, all the different government types. There's also the cloaking tech, which is it's kind of fun, but for the most part, I don't really use it very much. It something you can use, but I don't really see too much use out of it. It's overall a pretty good DLC. If you specifically want that kind of fantasy, it's there or real on the cloaking tech. For 15 bucks, I don't really think it's worth it, so definitely catch on sale, but it's overall fine. Apocalypse is definitely overpriced, but big gun make planet go boom boom. Do you want your exterminator streams to be fulfilled? Here is the DLC for you. Through various flavors, drowning the world, cracking into pieces, or shooting a divine weapon that makes everyone believe and those who do not die. You can abduct people either through Ascension perk or a civic, the civic which also allows you to make mercenary enclaves, which allow you to make a separate entity that runs the fleets and pays you part of the profits. The new tradition tree unyielding, which is more focused on defense, but if you're playing a hive mind or just in general, can help you early game econ since it increases your service cap and can build more solar arrays and hypoponic farm base. Words are hard. 2 new origins, which are fine, but you either start with a Gaia World or Tomb World, which I actually think the Tomb World one is a little bit better since people will end up preferring Gaia, and you don't start with your habitable guaranteed worlds. That isn't good, and also then you can inhabit Tomb Worlds with that origin. You also get a longer leader lifespan, which is nice. And also the mid game, there's a crisis that happen. Crisis, I mean it with like quotation marks, but it typically gets curb stomped and it really doesn't add that much at all. So it's there. Oh, you also get the space raiders, which just another threat that just really ends up being an annoyance, and it's kind of a threat. It just sort of sometimes show up and demand tribute or just raid a world, although typically you can fend them off fairly easily, although you can buy good commanders from them, so that is something. But yeah, Apocalypse, overpriced. I do like the thing that gives you, you know, big boom booms, and I do like the nutrition tree and the whole abducting people. But yeah, 20 bucks is a bit much. Definitely catch it on sale, although unless you really want to, you know, crack planets and do all of that, then get it. But otherwise, yeah, it's overpriced, but I mean, the content is good. Hello, it's editing me. I somehow forgot to mention Titans in Apocalypse. They are like the flagships or capital ships of your fleet. You get a certain amount depending on the amount of naval capacity you have, and they either buff your whole fleet or debuff all enemy fleets in a system. So it's, you know, it's pretty good. They're about 3 times the size of a battleship, and they're, you know, cool. Not like a huge thing, but it was a pretty, you know, cool thing to miss, not to mention in Apocalypse. I definitely feel like it's a highlight. So yeah, there's also that. They're pretty cool. Now moving on to detail, Leviathan. It's old and it shows. If not mistaken, it's the first Stellaris DLC. It gives some portraits, and I mean portraits 5. It's not really a set. So Leviathans, which give some strong rewards for killing. Enclaves, either research or unity focus, giving you, well, research unity bonuses if you interact with them. The War in Heaven, which is when some fallen empires awaken and get very angry at each other, which you can take sides on either side of the empires that awaken, or there'll be an independent coalition of empires. It goes on sale fairly often, but it's not really too much of a DLC. I do think it's alright, but the age definitely shows in this one. This in Stars gives you more exploration stuff, more anomalies, storylines, all of that. But I think most notably is the L cluster, which is a thing that spawns every single game. You can go like on a quest chain to explore it. It has some nice logistical stuff because it has different gateways throughout different areas of the galaxy, and it's just, you know, something good to chase and has extra story stuff within itself. So a nice thing just to do every single game with more story, exploration, anomaly, things and text you can get from it. It's, you know, a decent DLC, a bit older like Leviathans and the kind of shows, but I think ultimately fine. And now, I think, now I don't think D tier is bad. In fact, I think D tier and anything above is something you should at some point add to your collection. Maybe in the order of the tiers, or you can do whatever you want. F tier, though, which we're about to move on to, is a little bit of a different story, and let's get into it. Astral Planes isn't like the worst. It could be D tier, and maybe I'm being a little too harsh on it. It has grown on me a little bit, but for $20, it has fine enough civics and no origin relating to the astral rifts, which are basically glorified archaeological sites. There are also the astral powers, which provide various buffs, and some other utility stuff. You can do like a locking wormholes to only allow people you want to go through them, and quite a bit of relics you can use from the rifts. It's okay, it's just a price too much. I think $10 would be better. It doesn't really anything, I think, too special, particularly, you know, I don't think it's anything particularly strong or sort of integral feeling to the fancy of Stellaris or whatever. You can catch it on sale, but I would definitely get a few others higher up on the list before this. So I wasn't a fan of Nemesis before Machine Age, and now Nemesis is even worse because the main thing that Nemesis gives you is to become a crisis. And that's really it. For $20, along with the ship set, which is pretty cool, and the most useless tradition tree, because it's based off espionage, and espionage is barely a feature. And yeah, so now Machine Age gives Become a Crisis Path, which I would say is probably better, like just funner than the Nemesis one. And it's only like an eighth or even less of what that DLC offers for $5 more. So yeah, the DLC is crazy overpriced. 100% get on sale if you want the experience, but even then it's like like before, I would say it would be something you probably should throw into your collection at some point, because Become the Crisis is a cool, you know, thing. But now that there's Machine Age, I honestly is probably the only DLC I would straight up tell people just not to get, unless you just really want to do specifically this Become the Crisis path. Which, I mean, it does have some fun things of like a Star Eater ships, and then the Victic edition for this one is, you know, kind of fun too as well. Although Machine Ages has like multiple different endings, which also interacts a lot more with the lore of the game as well. So do what you want, but I heavily do not recommend getting this DLC. Alright, well, hopefully you found that helpful, and it wasn't too confusing, and that was understandable, and all of that. And yeah, thanks for watching, and bye now. Have a good day.